Maybe we'll start up. I'll call to order the Monday, July 17, 2023 Environment and Natural Areas Committee. And I want to start by acknowledging that we're meeting tonight on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people, and in particular our near neighbors, the Shannon First Nation. So I have an agenda prepared, but we have one pink to add to that, correspondence from Bev Bacon. So if I could have a motion to adopt the agenda with that addition, I would take that. Thank you, Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. So in the presentation tonight, any public participation? Would anybody like to say anything this evening? Alison Leduc.
So introduce yourself. Yep. Darian Place, and I'm the president of the Bilston Watershed Habitat Protection Association tonight. As some of you know, Ron Foley, who is a rivers biologist with the Provincial Ministry of Waterland and Resources Stewardship, was in the Bilston Watershed July 5 to do a fish survey and genetic sampling of the coastal cutthroat trout that reside in the watershed. So the genetic testing will determine whether the cutthroat trout in Bilston are a genetically unique subspecies, and the results should be available soon, and we'll let you know. But what I'm talking about tonight is that Ron also measured water flows at 3 sites in the watershed, and we've now been advised that the stream flow measurements are exceptionally low for this time of year, and that Machosen Creek had the lowest flow. And that is deeply concerning because we found the most young cutthroat trout in that creek, in that area of the creek, because it was sort of, I think because they're sort of concentrated, the pools are into a pool because other parts are drying up already. And so this was a site that was, the Machosen Creek survey site is to the south of Neald Road and downstream of the buffer lands. So Ron is also a member of the Provincial Technical Drought Working Group, which provides drought level updates for the province. And of course, Vancouver Island is now officially in drought level 5. And that's extremely early for Vancouver Island to be in a drought level 5 condition. So the findings have underlined our concerns about low water flow and survival of the cutthroat trout. And it has come to the point in the past where fish have died because there's not enough water in the creek. It's not just the trout, by the way. We did also find species like red-legged frogs, which are listed, stickleback crayfish. And so it is very concerning because we're at the beginning of the summer, we potentially have months of drought ahead of us. So I did email you links to, you won't have had time to see them, to the BC Drought Information Portal, the drought levels map, the West Coast Stream Watch map showing southern Vancouver Island, and a link to the BC Drought and Water Scarcity Response Plan, which was updated by the province in April of 2023, which indicates that provincial action may be available to identify streams and aquatic ecosystems of concern and to calculate the critical environmental flow thresholds for those streams, and that the province may thereafter ensure that the critical environmental flow threshold is maintained through regulatory action under the Water Sustainability Act. So I would like to ask the District of Machosen for 2 things tonight. And well, first of all, to explore all available options that, these aren't the only 2 options probably, but the first one would be that the District of Machosen request urgent provincial action to identify streams and aquatic ecosystems of concern in the Bilston watershed and calculate the critical environmental flow thresholds for those streams, and that the province thereafter ensure that the critical environmental flow threshold is maintained for all of the streams in the watershed. And secondly, that the district place a notice on the homepage of the district's website to underline the dire situation in our creeks and ask people to help monitor water levels to protect habitat for fish and other species that depend on the streams in Machosen. And if that notice, if you agree that that notice can be placed on the district's homepage. I hope that it will be appropriate for council members who use Facebook to help make the situation known through Facebook posts. I can tell you that the provincial biologist was so concerned about the situation that he actually recommended that we go door to door and tell people that especially the people that have the creeks in their backyard, please not to take any more water out of the creek. Not everybody has a not everybody that takes water out of the creek has a license, and so he's just saying, well, if they have an option to use city water, please ask them to use city water and not take any more water out of the creeks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Gray, I'm wondering.
Any questions?
Not yet. But I'm wondering if we could discuss this under other business, and the discussion might be around connecting with the province to, identify that Machosen and Millstone Creek are areas of concern, and it would be great to get from Ms. Leduc like the wording that we need to talk about, for example, critical flow thresholds and other actions that might be taken.
Sure, I'm open to adjusting the agenda for that if the rest of the committee's open to that.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So we'll cover that under other items on the agenda. And I think the
piece of paper too.
Pardon me?
Ask the Duke if she could give you the information that she read out there, so you could have it.
She sent an email earlier today.
Oh, she did.
So
okay. Thank you.
But we're not. I don't want to take any paper at the table, given our past experience with that. I can highlight it when we get to the topic. I've got some notes here. Thank you. Any other people like to say anything during public participation? See no one? We'll carry on with the agenda. The next item is adoption of the minutes. Our minutes of June 12, 2023. Did someone move adoption of those minutes?
So,
thank you. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. The next item would be receipt of minutes from the Environment Advisory Committee. Let me ask the minutes that we have tonight are from June 27, 2023.
Move receipt.
Thank you. I just seconder for that.
second.
I just see a typo. I think it's okay if we just carry on. It's on page 10, but you'll see mention an aquatic invasive species at B on page 10. Black knapweed at Tower Point, funded by CRD Olympic View and Duke Road, Clifford Drive. That's just been taken and a cut and paste, I think, from a different place. So we'll just delete that. Any further discussion?
Actually, sorry, go ahead.
May I little?
Yeah, I was just going to note on page 9, the Bufferland Stormwater Management Planning, it notes that Nicole Shukin has presented Trails and Swales concept to the Buffer Working Group, and then to Mayor Little, Councillor Shukin and Donaldson, and the interim CAO as well. The engineer was invited to that, but he couldn't make it. But that was also the interim CAO was there as well.
Thank you.
Well, a question around bullfrogs. This is on page 10.
Yeah.
And on the broader question of bullfrogs, do you know if there's been any work? And you may not this, but question in bullfrog eradication.
Right. So what's happened is I think we've now reported, I will say 3 sightings, 3 hearings.
Okay.
People have heard bullfrogs in three separate locations, and we reported those to the contractor, Stan Orchard.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to reach him by phone, but haven't been successful in doing that, but we are passing on the information. I'll be able to update you later in the week when I get in touch with him. I don't know if anybody in the office has heard. Ms. Hanson, do you know if anybody's spoken to Mr. Orchard?
I haven't heard from anybody.
Okay.
Staff yet.
I'll follow up. The interest in following up is several-fold. One is to be sure that he's on it. One of the questions that's come up apparently for the contract, we do have a standing arrangement, but it all depends on the number of people that he's been able to hire and the number of boats that he's got and the situation that we've got here as compared to the other districts and how many reportings they have. So I just want to tee up and be sure that our reports are actually going somewhere.
Great.
It was mentioned here in the minutes, though, around the Federal Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Fund. And the idea that what we discussed about was whether or not we could speak to Mr. Orchard about expanding this program for a future year, or talk to, another idea was to talk to Bilston Creek Watershed Habitat Protection Association about Japanese knotweed. So we started off with the Bilston Creek group, and we're just waiting to hear back whether we can, there might be something we can do there. And we'll fall back to the bullfrogs if not. Any other questions about the minutes from the ask? Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is my councillor's update, and I too want to just say a word about the Friends of Early Fords. I thought it was a great event, lots of fun. Imagine the amount of work that went into the cars that we saw out there that day. Absolutely tremendous. So it was kind of fun celebrating those old vehicles with so many people. And so congratulations to Bruce Summers, who organized the event, and our staff, Ms. Janowski, for her role in organizing, and also Councillor Shukin and Councillor Zapp. So I had a few things to talk about today. One was the first item was Transport Canada's scheduling of tanker traffic. So we have now communicated a number of times. You'll see in the agenda it's kind of heavily focused on oil spills and bitumen in the water, if you will. And so some time back, the committee, MEASC, had talked about, well, we've written the provincial minister, we've written Trans Mountain, and what we're telling them is, would they please go to the federal minister and have some discussion at the federal level at Transport Canada, who control the timing of tankers on our waters. And what we've noticed is that, and everybody's aware of this because of the letters that we've already mailed, we're aware that there is a significant amount of time, about 40% of the time, that the spill response teams are not able to get out onto the water because of the environmental conditions. And the restriction on them going on the water is from the Minister of Transport. Now they're not allowed to go out because of the danger, that the water is dangerous during those times. But those are likely the times when tankers are going to run into troubles as well, we surmise. So the idea that MEASC is putting forward to our committee tonight is that we would send a letter which is very similar to the letter that we sent to Minister Heyman a while back, but lays out to Minister of Transport Omar Alghabra the situation that we're facing, and ask if he wouldn't turn his attention to the question. So that's the issue there. I wonder if anybody would be interested in moving the motion that you see before us. That the Environment Committee recommend that Council send the proposed correspondence to the Federal Minister of Transport with copies of the Provincial Minister of the Environment. So keeping the Minister of Environment locally up to date, but saying that we're going to talk to the one who's in charge of the movement of these boats.
Yeah, I just wondered, this is kind of like saying that we don't want them in our waters when it's storming, but where exactly are they going to go? I mean, we know the tankers are coming, and so, and obviously we'd rather not have them in our waters, and if they can't respond to a spill response, but it's a little bit of not in my backyard if you're saying that, because they have to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I know the letter doesn't say anything about the timing to get into Vancouver, which we have talked about. So I guess I don't want to sort of say, well, we don't want them, but they can have them over there. And you know what I mean?
Right. It's not so much the point. I mean, we've made these points already to the provincial government. We're being asked to respond. We're being asked about the risks. We're being told that there's a problem, and they're saying, "What do you guys think about it?" So we can either say, "Well, we don't think much about it," or we don't respond. But in this instance, the idea is to get clear. I take your point, but the notion here would be, if we've got to have a big storm or the weather, we can't get our spill response people out. The tankers just hang back. They'll come through the next day. I'm not imagining that they'd be stopped for long periods of time here, but just sorting out when they would come. That's the notion. The problem's there. that I think is not deniable, the question, and we're being asked for advice. So I expect next month we'll be asked again about a different part about these things. So that's just the level that we're at, really.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking that the wind has been over that threshold pretty much every day for the last 2 months, it seems like.
So in the month of July, last year, it would be 11 days of July, not 30 days of July. In a 24-hour period.
Last year.
Last year, yeah. Things will keep changing. Mayor Little.
Yeah, so this letter is addressing the tanker traffic, not necessarily the tankers parked outside our coast. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this that is a concern. Of course, that remains one of our concerns, and I think Councillor Epp is bringing that to the forefront, that we are still concerned about the tanker traffic that is parked outside ours, outside Esquimalt, because we had said that there's other things that they could do with the Port of Vancouver so that there's not so many delays with tankers having to park outside our waters, Esquimalt, out by Galliano, Ladysmith. I mean, it's all connected. But this letter here is traffic coming back and forth with,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and now the ships that are parked, or that are moored, rather, off of Machosen and Colwood, those tend to be bulk carriers. Now, in the recent week, you've seen container ship there, but the container ships, that's because there was a strike in the port, is my understanding. Typically, the bulk carriers are the ones that are stopping here, the tankers are traveling through. But I think as the port for the Trans Mountain Pipeline goes into service, there's going to be an increase in that traffic of tankers themselves coming and going. So this is dealing with that tanker traffic issue.
Thank you.
So, thank you for this, and I want to pass on thanks to MIASC, because they've helped me understand this issue much more than I was aware of. Even just a few months ago. I think this letter, there's sort of an interesting attitude it comes with that. I don't know how to describe it. But I'm sensing that the last paragraph in the second, or third last paragraph on the second page, where, as a consequence of these circumstances, we seek agreement of Transport Canada that the tankers don't enter nearby oceans when such conditions exist or predicted during their time of transit. As you point out, that's a lot of the time, and I have a feeling that request is going to seem wholly unreasonable given the amount of traffic. What I might propose is striking that particular paragraph, but modifying the one that comes after it to actually just ask how they are planning to mitigate spill risks during times when the wind speed or currents don't allow for the organized spill response. I actually think that might yield something more of a productive response and possibly an opportunity for further dialogue. I just, my own sense is that paragraph at the top of the page, especially because we sent this letter again, is going to seem, boy, I wish I had a better word, not so disingenuous, but kind of unrealistic in our expectations. But the information that's provided in the letter is really solid. And I think asking the simple question about, again, mitigation plans around that is legitimate, and actually might be more powerful than, making a suggestion that they just might not be anywhere realistic. So that would be my proposal. The one other thing I might ask, and I might ask if this again, is Mayor Little's views on this, because these are typically go under her signature. So, yeah.
I have a question. Have you considered that the tankers are running here empty?
Pardon me, Bruce?
Why would you worry about them coming empty?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, just to come back then, Councillor Shukin, the question, so this letter's already gone to the province saying, would you please tell Minister Alcabra that we're seeking that they not travel through in this way, not into the ocean when such conditions exist or predicted. So we've already asked the provincial government to push that forward for us. And you're suggesting that rather than us going directly, we say something a little different, which is fair enough. Do you want to make a motion in that regard? I'm really the desires of the committee particularly. My own view, I share the view of MIASC, which is now that I've been in, I never expected to be immersed in the question of oil spills, but now I have been, and I'm going, holy crow, this is a very bad situation for us. Mm-hmm. If we have an oil spill on this coast in Metchosin, if you go down to Whitty's Beach and just hang out there for a little bit, or happen to visit Weirs Beach, which a lot of people have been talking about lately in terms of access in there, if that gets hit with an oil spill, well, we'll be evacuating first. Things will really go badly. It's not a great situation. So I'm wanting to stand up for the circumstance that we're potentially facing here and say, hey, this is not a good idea. But I'm one vote on the council, and I'm open to what people are thinking about. I think it's, as I say, never expected to be in a position of taking such a look at oil spills. Not a good situation at all. Some of our people on MIASC have actually attended oil spills in the oil spill response. Not diluted bitumen, much more dangerous substance, I understand, than regular oil, but there you go. So what's the wish of the committee? Mayor Little?
So on that particular, thank you for the letter. On that particular, I sort of agree. Asking them for something that we suspect they're not going to agree to, I don't want the whole letter to be dismissed because of that one paragraph. So I would be in favor as well. It's not a big sticking point for me, but I would be in favor of the addition that Councillor Shukin said before. But otherwise, I agree. It's pretty scary if we think about what could happen, and it's great to be prepared and to have that insurance. And that's what we're seeking.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I would move that the letter be sent with a modification striking that fourth from the end paragraph, but modifying the third last paragraph to phrase it as a question in terms of questions about mitigation plans in terms of spill risk during times of wind speeds occurrence that don't allow for the organized spill response.
Thank you. And seconded by Mayor Little. Any further discussion? I think I'll explain this to the committee as we've talked about that I don't know entirely your feelings about it, but that the particular statement here is a request that is not likely to be followed, and so therefore make a different request.
I would say the thought comes to me now that I don't think it will be taken at all seriously. However, again, a basic question around that follows up the sharp facts that are provided. I think that's something that does need to be taken seriously. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. So any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you kindly. The next report, you remember I came to the committee at our last meeting to say that we didn't have a lot of expertise in MIASC to look at the question of the health human risk effects of a spill. And I want to say thank you to Councillor Shukin who put me on to Dr. Valerie Jaeger, who's a member of our community. Dr. Jaeger is an MD, PhD in pharmacology and toxicology, and holds her master's in public health. And she took a look at the report that we had and very enthusiastically got to work on it. So Dr. Jaeger's been responsible in the past for fossil fuel spills in the Great Lakes when she was medical health officer for Niagara. And my understanding is that she did halt the traffic on the Great Lakes as a result of a big spill that occurred there because of the difficulty with the spill and the danger that it held for the people in the area, particularly the drinking water. At any rate, she worked on this letter for us, and then he asked me to look at some recommendations to put forward, and there you have it. The one thing that I think may not be clear to the reader of the letter at the moment is in the recommendations, number 2, COPC is used, and what that is, contaminants of potential concern. So we'd write that out properly. So the notion that the letter explains to you is that the work that's been done here describes bitumen spill as sort of a downplays the seriousness of the question, when in fact, over 50% of the population, if the data is to be accepted, would suffer with eye irritation, possibly not being able to see, followed by nausea. This would be a major public health event in Vancouver, and the system would be quickly overwhelmed by the number of people seeking care. In Metchosin, it would mean different things. We have a much smaller population, but a very dangerous circumstance for most of us, or most a dangerous circumstance. And so this is really a comment on what we received and the human health risk efforts that were put in. The suggestion here is that we not write back to Trans Mountain, but in fact direct our correspondence to the minister who's responsible. And that's Mr. George Heyman, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. And that we would ask several things. The first one we've already asked him before, but is that comment about slow these tankers down when they're coming into our waters. The second is that we need to be ready for contaminants of potential concern, including having eye wash stations and air quality monitoring units set up in our community. And then further that there be some stockpiling of personal protective equipment and spill response equipment here in the community. We're working on a land-based shoreline plan, or at least our chief is, and the council of course has looked at that and approved the idea. That's coming. But we would seek some provincial help with that, and then further developing community-wide evacuation plans. So thanks for the advice to going and finding an expert to help us, and this is the community expert's response that the MEAS group also favored and thought was worth putting forward.
Councillor Gray. From the time you asked Dr. Yager to do this to when she delivered her report, how long did she take?
I think 2 days.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to get the zip file. It's a very large file. It ended up that I brought it over on a drive.
Yeah. No, she's got wonderful background to look into this. Yeah. Can I make a suggestion? If I were, well, it's kind of a little different because Mary Little is a scientist in her own right. If this was me, I don't think I could put this down as a letter under my name. But I might send a letter with this as feedback or input, and have it maybe refashioned as a report. And the letter is just simply that this is a report that one of our community members, who was tasked with this from our environmental subcommittee, had done. So, but yeah, it's there's a lot of work and insight in here, and yeah, go better.
Mary Little?
Yeah, thank you for the letter, and also thanks to Dr. Yeager for the report. What I was thinking along the same lines as you actually is asking her. I'm sure that staff would give us direction. I was going to ask her to co-sign the letter because this is from the district, and you're right. Usually scientists don't take kindly information from another scientist without co-authorships, and that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so I was trying to grapple with that, and maybe if we could have her co-sign. Could I get direction from our deputy corporate officer What do you think to this idea? Did you want to discuss this?
It would still be coming from the district though, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I can't give any advice on that.
Okay.
I could just offer that Dr. Yeager's worked a lot in government circles, so she's quite used to the idea of both things, preparing letters that are signed by others who are in positions of authority, but also I'm sure she'd be pleased to sign it with you as well. But the issue would be that her signature block would describe her role, and then it would be clear that way.
Yeah.
I could certainly reach out and ask her, and if that was pleasing to the committee.
Yeah, so we could leave that option open through the chair,
absolutely.
and we could have discussions with the deputy corporate officer regarding this as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for that point. The one paragraph that I thought was a little bit inflammatory was the subsistence food is necessary for life. I know she's stating the obvious there, but I'm wondering if the federal government would take issue with us commenting on our lack of moral compass. I'm just wondering if that will that stop them from reading at that point?
Yeah.
Do you think? I'm just asking for your advice.
Yeah, I think it's okay. This is to the Minister of the provincial government. So we're, unlike the previous letter, which is, I understand the sensitivities there, to the federal government who are in charge. This instead is the minister who's looking at it going, I don't support this project in the first place, the province doesn't. I'm interested in knowing, about the impacts on our group here, so it gives him some language that he can use in other arguments, or the government can. But that's my take, but I'm perhaps more concerned about this in the sense of the medical side of it all. It's very worrisome when you think of the medical aspect to it. And the subsistence food is a language that was used in the report. So that's, I think, what she's trying to say is, you're telling us about subsistence food problems. Well, let me tell you, subsistence food is key for groups.
And how it's defined.
Yeah.
Okay. And George is spelled wrong.
Well, thank you for that. It's important. So if you'd be comfortable with sending that, then we could get that organized. Well, actually, it goes to council, and later what we would. So I would suggest we do that with a double signature block, and as one of the option.
So, do you want a motion on this then? Or?
I think that would be good too, that council would, the motions to council. That the Environment Committee recommend that council send the proposed correspondence as amended to the BC Minister of Environment.
Okay, got, I don't have it written here, so to send the recommendation as
Council send the proposed correspondence as amended to the BC
proposed
Minister.
correspondence as amended to the Ministry of Environment.
So,
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just want to point out to the committee that we are in recommendation 1 saying what we said we wouldn't say in the previous letter to the federal government. So we're saying this to the province and hoping they take action. I think this is okay, but just in case anybody hasn't noticed that we're in recommendation 1. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Those are good suggestions. And also in the previous, I appreciate that. So the next piece of correspondence, again from me, asks, so we received, again, another fairly large report to look at from Trans Mountain again. And this one's about environmental assessment certificate 39. It's called Existing Shoreline Condition Report. So what had happened is that they had prepared a report. I think they picked, I believe it was 5 locations on the coast, so not the whole coast, just 5 locations, and one of them is just off of Race Rocks here. And so we got the request saying, well, what do you think about the Race Rocks circumstance? And so a lot of this effort, in fact, grand majority of this effort is worked on by Gary Fletcher is the chair of MEASC at the moment. And what he was able to do was so they prepared a report on the conditions. So what exists there, what doesn't exist, what's the zoning. They wanted a lot of different questions about the land there, but the animals there, the flora and fauna. And they were missing a lot of information. So, but the request was, could you please add any information you have that would make our report stronger? In other words, we'd like to get everything we possibly can, all the life forms, everything we need to know about this piece of property that may face an oil spill. There's an overarching question, well, wait a minute, what if the spill happens down the road a little bit? Or not the road, down the street a little bit. But their question was specifically about this area here. So Gary's gone into all his records and he went back looking through the National Land Board submissions that a variety of people have made, including himself and others. And so we have all this information to provide. So this is simply saying, hey, I missed these ones, or this is more information which you can put into your report. I think the idea, although I'm not certain of this, is that if there's an oil spill, much of this will be destroyed, but we'd at least have a record of what was there before. But I don't think it has other importance other than cataloging what's there. It's hopefully there would never be a spill, but that's the issue there. This one's late. We just weren't able to in the time frame get the job done. So I'm hoping that later at council tonight, if we approve it here, we just send it on and get it into their hands. The idea being that even though it's late, the information is rich and valuable and would help make the report more full than it is today, or more complete. So I'd take a motion to send this forward, or comments or concerns. I'm very little.
I think everybody's getting tired, so I'll move this along. So I think this is a great letter, and the committee would like to thank Gary Fletcher for his years of work, but also for pulling out all of this. I didn't see the link to his website on here, which would be a really great addition. And if I could also recommend we not only send the letter, but send the letter by email to expedite it, but it would also include all the links, which would make it easy for the authors to click on the links and then go to these pages. He spent a considerable amount of time archiving this over the last 20 years or 25 years, but also in pulling this out. So thank you to him for that.
Perfect. I'll certainly pass that on, and we'll take that as a motion. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Donaldson. Yeah, I think Gary's involved in the Race Rocks website as well as the Eco Reserves website. So those are part of his contributions. They link back to his website in various places.
Another comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and so we're dealing with the EAC, not EAO. So in your report, you referred to the Environmental Assessment Office, but this is the condition from the committee.
The certificate, yeah.
The certificate, yeah. So this is, Gary's referenced it correctly here, so that's great.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing. Some are the EAO and some are the EAC. Great, okay. So, all in favor? Great, that sounds carried. And I wonder if that will not be copied to the minister in CRD, because I think people in CRD are interested in this topic as well. So the next item on the agenda was we'd received mayor and council received a letter from Town of View Royal, and the Town of View Royal has gotten involved in the Sue Big Oil campaign, which has come out of the West Coast Environmental Law group. And members of council heard this before because of
Councillor Graham. Sorry, but I think there's one more to come before that. We've just dealt with item 3 and then item 4.
Sorry. Whoops.
Yeah, please.
Let me just find my place here. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Shukran. So I raised the question of the, that we're going to be looking at the zero carbon building code, and staff are looking at that now. And we thought we might talk about that tonight, but it turned out, just with the amount of things on the agenda and availabilities, we're going to cover that in August, hopefully in August meeting. But when we talked about it, me asked, the topic came up saying, well, wait a minute, we shouldn't be expanding any natural gas supply to new developments presently. Now, I wasn't sure how much role that the district has, but I guess it's in the negotiation subdivision, particularly where we have the potential to say that's one of the issues. We know already that the proposal at Beckingham is to go electric. There's no intention to go with natural gas there. The idea here would be that the Environment Committee recommended council the district not support any extension of natural gas to new developments. This isn't to stop people who are on the gas line now hooking up, or businesses that want to hook up at the moment. This is if new development comes along. And so Miask said, well, let's get that before council now. There's no need to wait. We're facing an emergency. This is a big topic. Makes sense. So it's here tonight for consideration. A few of us were, during the election, ran as climate champions, and part of our goal there was that we would do what we could to move away from fossil fuel heating in buildings and replace with clean electricity, and that's sort of along these lines. Councillor?
I'd make a motion to recommend to council that the district not support any extension of natural gas supply to new developments in Mitchell's, and then just take a quick moment if there's a seconder to comment on that.
Second for discussion.
Thank you kindly.
The reason I would support this is, just as you say, Councillor Gray, there is an opportunity of where it exists for people to hook up to existing supply. But with where we stand right now, there are other options to natural gas. Heat pumps, better insulation, better windows. There are just simply other options, and the move now is toward electrification. So when you have those other options and they're readily accessible, why not take them? So
I think it's where all the districts in the Lower Island will go shortly. Thank you. Any other comments?
Through the chair, could I ask staff, interim CAO, Ms. Tarnowski, do we have this within our powers as a municipality to do this?
I'll have to double check.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't say for certain.
I honestly don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, you have the authority, I think, when you're, if there's no discussion with council on a new development, then it would be, it may be different. But what we're talking about here is when we have the opportunity to limit it, we do. So we're not going to support it. That's the basic bottom line, as opposed to the other way around, which is that we not permit it. Is not supporting it when we have the opportunity to not support it.
Okay.
I do recognize I may have jumped the gun in terms of offering support with this without knowing some of the complexities around, but I am assuming, given the district's control and say over subdivisions and the nature of the utilities that go in, I'm assuming that we do have some control over that. So, yeah.
Okay.
But again, it may be worth holding off until we get further clarity. But
Will the committee?
I would like to see us wait till staff comes back with more information.
Yeah. Not saying no, we're just want more information. I think that'd be good.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. I'm just looking down the end down there. I'm happy to get some more information.
no one seconded this, have they? I don't think so.
Councillor did.
Oh, she did.
But through the will of the committee, we can, if everybody's in agreement, that's okay. We can withdraw the motion
We can't withdraw it once you're not on.
by consensus. Yeah. If everybody's in agreement, we can.
If everybody's in agreement, you can withdraw the motion or vote on the motion.
I prefer not to vote on it because we'll bring it forward at the next meeting, and then there's all the problem of reconsideration, etc.
Okay, I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
Sure, you're okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So the last item then is, the second last item, is the Sous League Oil campaign. So we got a note from the town of View Royal, who've decided to jump in on the issue of proposed class action lawsuit against the large oil and gas coal companies. And it's contingent on a number of districts getting together and doing this. They would need to raise about $500,000. The fee for joining is $1 per resident if a case went forward. What provides the opportunity for this case to occur is that there was, I guess you might call it a fortunate or an unfortunate situation where there was a huge data leak from a number of the big oil companies in Canada. So it's and it's basically an exposure of their campaign over many years, knowing about the risks of fossil fuels leading to climate change, and working to modify public opinion so that no action would be taken. And so the lawyers at West Coast Environmental Law, but others are quite, I think there's a good opportunity here to deal with this behavior of the large oil companies. And so it's similar, very, very similar to the tobacco legislation. It's not that we don't all use these products, but the point is we could have earlier started to make transitions away and done some other things. Now, the reason why they're asking municipal governments to be involved is because municipal governments are the ones who will end up having damages, significant damages, or that's to say costs associated with it. So you might ask, well, what cost would Metchosin have? Well, we just had $15,000 we spent on a climate plan. So there's an expenditure right away that would be nice to recoup on. But there'll be other costs as we march forward in our planning and things that we're going to need to do to deal with the climate. Big cities will have much bigger bills on this. But they've turned to municipalities because we're the ones who do a lot of the infrastructure situation. So View Royal got involved, and then they're going around asking all within the Capital Regional District if we would join in. And MEAS took a look at it and said, yep, that sounds like a reasonable thing to do, to join Mayor Tobias and council there in View Royal and commit to join if in fact a lawsuit comes together. So I'd commend that to the committee if we're interested in doing it. It really has to do with the climate emergency we're facing and then being fiscally responsible. So we have to seek revenues where we can get them. Councillor App?
Do you have an idea where the $5,000 would come from?
You mean in terms of our own budget?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we would need to budget for it. This case won't be happening this year. This is something that will be happening in a number of years from now. Yeah. So if we do this, then we put it in our budget for next year. Yes.
I want to ask the obvious question.
Certainly.
So that would be, I feel a little uncomfortable doing this, to tell you the truth, because I'm wondering if it's an initial 5,000 commitment, and then as we go through the course of would there be additional asks? If, as a resident pointed out, if we lose, what then would we be responsible for compensatory or damages to the big oil? I'm just wondering about what other fiduciary responsibilities we would have being a member of this lawsuit.
Yeah, I think the idea is the investment is limited to the $1 per person, and so the legal team that are working on it are pulling all that together so they come in on budget when it proceeds. We could have a presentation made by the West Coast Environmental Law if that would help people. That's what happened at View Royal. I knew that Councillor Donaldson was involved in discussing these things, and yourself as well in terms of the climate champion things in the election. So I wasn't sure if we needed a full-on presentation, but be happily to organize such a thing.
Yeah, I think that would be certainly helpful for me, knowing nothing about this and how it will proceed in the courts.
Let's do that.
Okay. Would that be okay with everybody?
That's fine with me to get more information.
It's not 5,000, it's 500,000, correct?
500,000 for the whole suit, like
Okay.
when everybody
Right.
jumps in who's going to get in. So nothing happens at all. There's no expenditure unless $500,000 is raised. Our population is 5,000, so I guess it's $5,076. Great. Well, I'll organize a presentation. The final note was just about invasive species removal, and just to say, so much has gone on in the last little while in terms of invasive species removal. It's really quite something. And I want to tell a little story about it, which is that I sort of thought I'd seen it all with the involvement of the Machosen Invasive Species Group, reporting on the bullfrogs. We dealt with the rabbits. We've had the broom bash, then Tansy Ragwort going on. Well, I got a phone call from Jenny Eastman, who's a staff person with the CRD, and she told me that she'd spotted an invasive called egg leaf spurge up in Chapel Heights. But she arrived there late at night and she grabbed a picture, but it was blurry, and could I go and take a photograph and enter it into the provincial database? I thought, sure. So I went up there and lo and behold, there it was, and I was able to get a few good pictures of the plants there. And I went on to the website and I registered, and at first I couldn't sort of get the app, but I got it on the browser. I entered the information, and it's an anonymous thing. I mean, you provide information, but you send it off. And I thought, I wonder if anybody will ever see this. Half an hour later, I get a phone call from Becky Brown in Nanaimo, involved in invasive species. She said, we will have provincial employees there this afternoon to deadhead that plant, and within a week we will come up, we'll survey the area and remove all the plants in their entirety.
Well,
So it's like, so sometimes invasive species are dealt with at an amazing degree. So egg leaf spurge is a particularly worrisome one, and it's a plant that once it's removed, if they can remove it all, it won't spread. But it's on the high priority list. And I just learned about brooms at one level and blackberries at another level. We'll eventually get something like egg leaf spurge, and it's all bets are off. Kind of exciting. Anyway. I'll be learning more and more about invasives, I think, as time goes forward. So that's all I had for tonight. I think we don't have any other items on our agenda, except we do have, I want to recognize the correspondence from Bev Bacon. And Bev had just laid out some encouraging notes about the various items on our agenda tonight. And thanks to Council for looking through those different topics, and we'll get a bit more education on a couple of them for our next meetings.
Councillor,
Shugan.
sorry, I have to extend your party a little bit longer, Councillor. Right?
Certainly.
So we talked about, we've added the critical flow issue of Bilson Creek to the agenda. Yeah, so we added it to...
Oh, right, excuse me.
Yeah.
Heaven's sakes.
But before that, I would like to make a motion to extend the council meeting beyond, or the committee council meeting beyond 10.
Seconded, was that?
I'll second.
So moved by Councillor Shugan, seconded by Mayor Little. All in favor? Thank you.
And that we would meet no later than 1 a.m.
Okay, great. Thank you for catching me on this. So this is the concern that Alison Ludwig brought up during public participation. I think I might suggest the very minimum that we can do here is we can get this on our website, and if once that happens, if we can get picked up as a Facebook post, that's a easy thing to do. And I think what we're really asking is people keep an eye on things, but more important than that, that they not draw water if it's possible that they not do so at this time. From the tweaks. So that can be done. The thing I think we might need a motion for here is to contact the Provincial Assistance Program to identify what's going on up in our creeks.
yeah. Could you read that again?
Yeah. So Alison sent a note just this afternoon, and I think later it's gone to everybody. So here are the 2 points. Number one, so she describes what she described this evening. And number 1 is the District of Metchosin could request urgent provincial assistance to identify streams and aquatic ecosystems of concern in the Bilston watershed and calculate the critical environment flow thresholds for the streams. And that's the information that's then been used by the province to judge what action might be taken. For example, regulatory options. Now, whether there's any on Bilston Creek, Alice and I had a chat this afternoon, we're not totally sure of that, but if there's any action that could be taken, that would be worthwhile. Now, and then she goes on, if there's a good option, we could also ask the City of Langford to issue the same request, Langford being on the Bilston Creek watershed. Now, you might think, well, what could be done? Alison points out in her note, and I'm not sure she mentioned this tonight, but that apparently in the past the province has drilled a well to augment summer stream flows in Sandhill Creek on Saanich Peninsula. So there is big action can happen. Now that may be a salmon bearing stream, I'm not sure. So with a level of intervention, there might be different. But I take the point that's being made tonight is let's contact the province and see if they've got any advice or any action they think we should take. And they might stop there, they might get involved, we'd find out. Mary
Make
Little?
that motion. Yeah, I think
Thank
that's a great idea with the wording that she provided. I think that would be something that we could do. It might not be even be on their radar. So
Correct.
Yeah.
I think the other, sorry, that's a motion here and a seconder.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Shukin. Yeah, we're not sure what will happen, but let's take the action and do that if everyone's in favor. Anything more to say about that in particular? All in favor? Okay, motion's carried. Then the second issue would be to get it up on the website. I think we can just do that as an action. That's the pledge for the committee. Great. Okay, well now I take a motion to adjourn. With thanks to Alison Leduc and Kim Hill, who I believe will work on this together. Great.
So moved for adjournment.
Thank you. Thank you. Carried. I guess we have a minute or so and we'll start up the
yeah.
council
So
meeting.
we've got a 2-minute